Hey there, welcome to Cars on Call. My name is Adams Hudson. I will be pretending to be your host along with Stephan Moran today because in today's episode, Stephen is missing. We got to find out if he's coming back. Also in today's episode, the Polestar 4, the offshoot of Volvo, a really handsome design, a pretty decent EV range, but it has no back window. Also in today, Stephan is going to talk about how design can affect safety and vice versa. And lastly, we will be discussing some wonderful designs throughout the years and throughout the decades. We will include manufacturers such as Ferrari, Lamborghini. We'll touch on Ford, and we will also cover Range Rover, Jaguar, and other cars prone to spontaneously combust. All of that is in today's episode of Cars on Call. All right, and today, to my co-host, trauma surgeon Stephan Moran, we're carrying the weight of the show here. So where is our missing comrade?
Well, Steve-O, after 61 episodes, decided to take a vacation.
Like he earned it?
Yeah. He actually is, I can't know if it's a high school or medical school or reunion, but of all the car pictures coming from where he is at, he has gotten to see some amazing vehicles and drive some amazing vehicles. And I'm sure he's going to have some great stories to tell when he comes back on the podcast about what he got to see and do.
You know, he was gone about 30 minutes, and I think me and you both got a photo of the Cadillac Lyric that he saw on the street side. One of 4 of those probably sold, I think, and of the Porsche Sport Turismo, a couple of cars we've discussed.
You know, it's fun. Every time we travel, we're always seeing cars, and we always text each other, "Hey, look what I saw!" And that's why we have the car spotting segment about the cool cars that we've seen. I think the cool car that we saw here in the news was the Polestar 4.
What
did I forget?
I actually have a little intel on what Brother Steve has been up to looking at. I saw a photo, and I don't know if you checked it out, but there is a 60s Shelby Mustang, a continuation 427 Cobra, short wheelbase 911, a bunch of 911s, by the way, like a 993 RS, you know, in some crazy, I think it's Riviera or maybe Mexico Blue. There was a Pontiac Formula 400 sitting in the background. There was some sort of crazy Galaxy Resto mod thing going on, a Lynx, which you may or may not know.
I don't even know what that is.
You know that,
like the Mercury Lynx that was.
Oh, you are on. That is such a trivia pull. Yes, there was a Mercury Lynx, and it was sort of the Bobcat Lynx sort of family of a tragic little car destined to fail. But the Lynx manufacturer, LYNX, not like the modern day computer Lynx, but was a recreation of a Jaguar D-Type, and this is no simple copy car. This is like faithful down to the nuts and bolts. It's a Jaguar D-Type, and it is fantastic looking.
Oh, I thought that was a real Jaguar in the picture. I didn't realize
that's
it was.
What you would think. Yep,
yes.
That was the Lynx. That was the Lynx.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a very fine piece. So if you want to hear about those cars, we're going to beg. We're on bended knee right now that you like, subscribe, follow, and do whatever it is you do on your favorite streaming platform. We've got to bring Steve back, and the only way we can guarantee it is if you do that. Plus, his family would like to see him again. So do your part by following, and subscribing. All right. So, Steph, jump on over to that topic you were going to mention about the Polestar.
So, in the news came out the new Polestar 4, and Polestar is a kind of a division of Geely and Volvo, a lot of inspiration there and safety, and they had some cool cars. And several episodes back, I drove the Polestar 2 out in California, met a dealer, and this is an interesting. I think we need to rethink the whole idea of SUV and crossover. It's like this is considered an SUV, probably to do with size, weight, wheelbase. I don't know, but this is kind of an electric vehicle SUV coupe. And it's their answer to the BMW 5 Series, the Model Y, the Cadillac Lyric. But Maximilian Missoni, who is the head of Polestar Design, he really wants people to call it a reinvention and a new class. And kind of looking at it, it's really just a tall 4-door coupe is what it is.
There you
It
go.
doesn't look giant like an SUV. It's actually 5 centimeters shorter than Macan.
Interesting.
So it really is just kind of to me, it's a tall 4-door sedan hatchback, or just a 4-door station wagon sheet and brake that's kind of tall. But it's got that coupe sloped backside coming down off the roof, and going to have single motor, dual motor, faster, 62, 3.8 seconds, about $60,000 for the base. You get up higher, but here's what's cool. That is very unusual about this,
or just weird.
Or just weird. This is going to be a hot topic of conversation. It has no back window.
Tell us that again. It has
no back window.
Okay.
First to market.
And we're assuming this is all handled. It also has no rear view mirror.
Right. So this is kind of like a design leap of faith, man. This took more mojo than a Bengal butted BMW.
Yeah.
And for those of you that know what a Bengal butt is, just type in BANGLE butt BMW, and you'll see it was
and when you do that, have your hand close to being able to go over your eyes real quick. You don't want to look at it too long.
But this is interesting to me. And I think this is clearly future oriented as we move towards autonomous driving. And think about, what do you mean a car doesn't have a back window? Well, think about all the vehicles that don't have a back window.
Like the biggest tour buses on the road.
Tour buses, 18-wheelers, panel vans, cargo vans, RVs. My F-150 pulling a trailer. I mean, I might as well tear out the rear view mirrors. It's absolutely zero use. Or, so yeah, we have rear view mirrors, but it seems to me like more people use them to shave, put their makeup on, and check out their kid in the back seat than actually looking who's coming behind them.
And that's possibly a very good safety sort of tie-in for that segment. But I find that there's a tiny bit of irony, I guess it would qualify in that category, that the car has an incredibly expansive panorama roof. So it's got glass all above you. And so you can see the pigeons, you just can't see the pedestrians. It's got, it depends on high def graphics through a camera to see. And a lot of lower sports cars have them and absolutely need them. A lot of normal SUVs have them. When you're about to back over a tricycle or something that's a little bit lower than the normal field of view. And I can understand the push, but I feel like maybe at my advanced age, it would just make me feel claustrophobic, honestly.
Yeah, I think it'll take some time to get used to, but let's talk about from the safety aspect, a regular standard rearview mirror versus a digital rearview mirror. And what the whole concept around the mirror is one of visibility. So what you're doing is you are increasing your awareness of those around you sharing the road with you. Now, generally, you want to keep your eyes to the front, but you do also have to consider side visibility, when you're passing or being passed. And rear visibility is most important when backing up and also when considering lane changes. Mm-hmm. Or somebody coming up on your rear end, you don't want to hit the brakes. So what we're really talking about is vehicle visibility. Now, some of the Audi e-tron had these side mirrors that were pure digital. That has not been very well received. I think a rear view mirror is a step in the right direction. And I think to me, it makes a lot of sense. There's a few problems with a traditional mirror that you have. If the sun is glaring, it doesn't work. At night, you really don't see anything because there's no augmented night vision in a rear view mirror. So now you have a digital rear view mirror that now has night vision augmentation. It also has, what's most important is it has a wider field of vision. So think about, listeners, and the best way to understand visibility, and especially if you drive an SUV or a truck, is if you see a tunnel and you can see light on the other end of the tunnel, when you enter the tunnel, all you have is the narrow vision at the end of the tunnel. As you get closer to the end of the tunnel, your field of vision increases. Now you can see, as you go down, you see more and more. So think about it. If you're sitting driving a, let's just say a Suburban, full-size Suburban, when you look out that front window, you can only see from the straight of your eye to the top of your hood. And for most people, Suburban, that's going to be around 12 feet where you can't see anything on the ground within 12 feet. So a toddler on a tricycle, a kid on a bicycle that's within 4 feet of them, you're not going to see them. It's physically impossible because they're outside of your scope of vision. Now think about it. You're now looking out the rearview mirror. You're looking at a mirror up that goes straight back out the window, and the window is just as high. You also have no rear visibility out of one of those vehicles unless you're in reverse and have the camera on. So now think about if you actually had a rear view mirror that had a full-time camera. So now you can basically see the road 2 to 3 feet behind your vehicle.
Now, but Steph, now on those, when you say it does the panorama, of course, that means that it's sort of bending space, as it were. Everybody's taking maybe a panorama shot with their iPhone,
Right.
And it bends space, and it sort of alters the ability to maybe judge some of the distances of things. You don't really get the full correct, I'll put quotes on the correct field of vision, and maybe how far away certain things are. That's going to take some driver adaptation, wouldn't you think?
I think so. I think it's a great point, Adams. I think I'll be very, as soon as I can get to a Polestar dealer, I'm going to go see this for myself. I really want to see this. I imagine they're not doing too wide a panorama, but I think that the other thing that's important that make these digital mirrors make sense is think about the Toyota FJ Cruiser. Think about the brand new Defender. You have these large panels at the back of the vehicle, which means that is the world's biggest blind spot. So if you look out your rearview mirror, you're basically looking out a porthole out the back. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And even in the big Suburban, with ABC pillars and different cars, you look over your shoulder, there's nothing to see because of the pillars.
And listeners and viewers, when he's referring to ABC, A would be the windshield, B would be between the two doors if there are two side doors, and then the C would be that backmost area. And man, you picked two perfect examples.
Yes.
The FJ Cruiser and the new Land Rover. Is that the Defender? Is that the one that's got the huge C pillar?
Yes, gigantic C pillars, like 2 to 3 feet long.
And you cannot see an approach. If you're going to do a lane change and you don't check you've got to be looking out your door mirrors, or I don't know if they have camera augmentation on the mirrors on the new Range Rover, but my gosh, that you cannot see 3/4 to your rear. I have no idea how you would ever parallel park one of those.
Exactly. So think about, you're sitting in, let's say you've got your Porsche Cayenne and Ellen's got her Hyundai Santa Fe or whatever that thing is she drives. And you got adults in the back seat. You can't see anything out. You see if you got 3 adults in the back seat, you're not seeing anything out of your rearview mirror other than the people in the back seat. Right. So now so this is another fantastic feature of the new digital mirrors. It's really a screen, but listeners, the one feature they all have is you can turn it off and have a actual mirror. So even in this, you can still turn it off and see the people in the back seat with the mirror if you want to, which is kind of cool.
Now, do we know, Steph, does the Polestar 4, does it have digital screens for its side mirrors? I know it does in the interior of the car, but
no, it does not.
Okay, it has real live mirrors.
Only for the rear view mirror.
Okay.
And the only manufacturer that I'm aware of that has, now Honda has a little augmented blind spot screen on their mirrors on some of their Hondas, but the only one that I can think of that has completely digital was, I think, the Audi e-tron, the big e-tron, their big SUV. I can't remember which one that's called.
One wonders, and one with the slight safety mindset. Well, you have an extreme safety mindset. I have a slight, not even nearly advanced as your safety mindset. One wonders what the heck happens when that fails. If you're driving along in your e-tron and that mirror fails, now what?
It's no different than in your old car when you go to pump on the brakes and the brake pedal hit the floor. I mean, there's always going to be a system that fails in a car,
Yeah.
or it's stuck in. So there's always something that fails. But I think electronics probably have a lower failure rate than most mechanical items. If you think about it, when's the last time you had a major, at least, Lucas and the English aren't making electronics for most of these vehicles. So I think we'll be safe.
Oh, we will now that they're out of it. Well, we look forward to seeing the Polestar out. That was a good explanation of how its design and how modern cars sort of is affected by all this technology once again. Now we can't even depend on our eyes looking in a mirror. It's got to be supplemented by some version of electronics.
I do want to go back one quick thing, Adam. So for those of you that do have the Palisades and you're carrying kids around, most of those do have pedestrian warning, fortunately for the front, to help you with that blind spot. But next time, and I'll tell Jessica, this nurse practitioner I talked about on my last episode with her kids and the seat belts and all that and the booster seats. But
hey, you let her down. She just bought the car and told her what a unsafe vehicle it was and what a sorry mother she must be.
Yeah, unsafe for people, the kids in the far back. But so if you do have one of these big vehicles, suburban, sit in it and have somebody walk towards you, and then have a short person, a kid, walk towards you and see when they disappear, or put a box in front of your truck and see when it disappears, and learn. And you're going to be, and do it from the rear as well. You're going to be kind of frightened to see how much you cannot see in front of you, because it's just physics. It's an angle, your eyes to the top of the hood, that angle, you can only see in a straight line. You can't see around corners. So I think this digital stuff is cool, and I can't wait to actually see it. I think it'll be easy to get used to, except for maybe my wife, who still will not use a backup camera. She uses mirrors, but I think most people adapt.
I'm a little on her side, partly, and I just have to say it like this. I kind of don't always trust it, because I'm going to back up my Cayenne. I do look down and see, am I going to run over anything immediately behind me? Because it's a low mounted camera, but I check my side mirrors and I turn physically around in the seat, partly because I just don't trust it. Plus, things can be moving from your periphery into that camera angle that you would never see otherwise. So I'm with Ellen on that.
All right.
Well, man, that was a good wrap up, and we're going to transition a little bit over, and it's only a small step over, because we've spent some time talking about design and about how kind of cool that Polestar is. And I can't ever say the name Polestar without having to remind listeners, this has nothing to do with the pole in a gentleman's club. This is not that star. This is about the North Star, the North Pole, the cold climates, and maybe a guiding star. So think of it in those terms.
They have the limited edition Tiffany coming out, I think, as well, the trim package.
Yeah, and it's all shag carpet inside, including the roof. Yeah, okay, that's where they put the mirrors. Now
the mirrors on the ceiling. Oh my goodness. All right, fans only Polestar edition.
They're going to miss a marketing opportunity if they don't do that. Well, we're talking this issue. We're going to switch topics here and just talk about how manufacturers nowadays certainly understand the power of a good design. There had been years that it was a little bit dearth in the design world, but now manufacturers know that, to attract people to the showrooms or to their websites, the car needs to be handsome. It needs to be taken into consideration that you're going to be luring people visually first and foremost. And when you think about it, it almost doesn't make sense, because really the automobile is just a useful tool. It's to get from A to B. That's its primary function. But as we covered a couple of episodes back, its functionality is sometimes exceeded by what it says about your lifestyle. You want to have a sort of a lifestyle statement because you drive a certain car that makes you look and or feel a certain way. Not that you're posing, but you just kind of want to feel a certain way. And I do that as well. And though I rarely give credit, like a modern example, I don't give credit to this manufacturer very much for a variety of reasons. But let's just look not very far in our formerly called a rear view mirror and say that the Tesla made EVs cool. Why did it make EVs cool? because it looked fantastic, and it looks fantastic. It's a wonderful design. It's very handsome. It's not only capable as a car, but I mean, look at the thing. It's got an incredibly handsome silhouette, the Model S especially. And
Yeah,
prior
I'm
to
with you. I like the Model S. I'm not big on the 3, but I do like the S. I think the S has been a wonderful design. It stood the test of time, and
agreed and agreed. Yeah, the Model 3 doesn't do it for me. It looks like it had its lips sewn shut, and I just can't get past that look. But the Model S is handsome. And you know, formerly, like before that, when an EV was an EV, they looked like wingless insects or whatever they were sort of trying to look like, and they were decidedly not cool. And the design of Tesla changed that. Now, we also know that long-term collector value, you know, it would certainly add to the short-term resale value if your car's popular and cool looking. But the long-term collector value absolutely harkens to design, even among head-to-head competitors. A couple of super quick examples, and then we're going to move into mine and Stephan's choices for cars that we think really exemplified great design and have and are going to stand the test of time for the future. So if we look way back over our shoulder, a couple of examples, one that popped into my head before we move into our choices was the, say, the Lamborghini Countach versus the Ferrari, what they would have called the Boxer, which is a 365 GTB4 into the 512 BB later. Now, if you look at those cars, and of course I am a Ferrari fan, but this comes with no sort of home field advantage here. I would say, and I think a lot of Lamborghini experts would agree, the BB, the Boxer, is a superior vehicle. For all the things that cars are measured upon, it is a superior vehicle, a car to be used for its intended function. However, the Lamborghini will bring 3 to 4 times what the contemporary rival Ferrari will in the collector world. And why is that? I think it's because it looks like it came from another planet. It is absolutely futuristic in every regard. It's an incredible looking design. It got a little clunked up toward the end, toward the anniversary edition, but I'm talking about the pure 74-ish to 1980-ish. It doesn't even matter. But that car looks like it came from another solar system, if not a planet. And that's what collectors pay for now. That car would be as functional and revered if you hung it on the wall in a museum and people talked about it in hushed voices. It's just a work of art. The Boxer's not an unhandsome design at all, but compared to the Countach, it just doesn't stand out and grab you.
Do you think the Testarossa was a follow-up design challenge to respond to the Countach?
Well, it was what they attempted to do. The Testarossa was Ferrari's first real attempt following the 308 to design a car from the ground up for American tastes. It was considerably wider. It was considerably longer. It had tremendous overhangs. It had a functioning air conditioning, and it had a lot of other things that made it a pretty decent car. But they were trying to go full tilt futuristic with that car. And that's a very good point. When that car was recently outdated, I mean, like when the last Testarossa, which was the 512 TR of 1984, that's when that design would have finally laid down and gone away. It fell into the valley of the shadow in collector car values. People thought it didn't age well. The cheese grater look, you know, people love to refer to themselves as the grater hater because it had the big slats on the side that were, you know, supposedly mandated by safety over birds flying into your intake or something like that. But yeah, that was sort of a follow-up design, but they almost went too far, Steph.
I did. Yeah, I mean, the Testarossa was just, I don't know, you know, you had the Countach, and to me that the Testarossa then came out as a follow-up challenge, but there's been nothing. The Countach is just one of the coolest, most outrageous sports car designs ever from the company that I think made the most beautiful car ever, the Miura. The Lamborghini Miura is the most beautiful, and that was the car that Earl started the whole engine supercar kind of thing as well. Yep. Another iconic design. Now, have you ever owned a Miura, Countach, or a Testarossa?
Neither of the Lamborghini, but yes, I had a late 512 TR, which is really the
Right.
Testarossa sort of modernized, and that was, I'm telling you, that was a highly functional car. It did a lot right, and it was considered reliable. It had what would have been the upgraded Motronic 2.7. Not to get too far in the technical weeds, but it was a grand step up in reliability from the old Testarossa.
And that's the one, if I remember correctly, you almost passed out when the air conditioning went out because you're afraid what the bill is going to cost. And then you found out, very fortunately, that the compressor was.
Yeah. No, you have a great memory. Go ahead and finish that. The compressor from
Who was the compressor, air conditioning compressor source from?
GM.
GM Delco. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Hallelujah. I mean, hallelujah.
It was $1,500 in the Ferrari box, and it was about $250 in the GM box. Guess what?
That's
goes.
Just what it didn't have Luigi stamp gets the extra money for it. That's hysterical.
That's right, the Ferrari tax. But it's crazy, and I'll look at one other car example before we jump into our choices that really, I mean, when I was sort of thinking about this, I thought, wait a minute, does design really make that much difference? Am I only going to come up with one or two examples? Honestly, folks, not to make this show 2 hours long, which we've been warned not to go too long, but there are multiple examples, and you can think of some too. And I'll wind up with this one on the Jaguar E-Type. There are not many lists of the most beautiful cars in the world that do not include a Jaguar E-Type. It is just
absolutely.
Oh my gosh, you look at the cars, but what people are mostly looking at, even though that car was built from 61 to 74, similar guys, but say 61 to 71, almost the same look. And yeah, okay, well, the power was down and the tail lights got a little bit weird in the back. Honestly, it's basically the same body shell. So when people talk about the most beautiful, they are only referring to the Series 1 cars up until 67. And why? Because they're prettier. And those cars are the ones that will bring 3 to 4 times what a 68 to 71 will bring. And it's strictly because of the beauty and the purity. And Malcolm Sayer, God rest his soul, the aerodynamicist with the Royal Air Force, who designed that car, he was really a plane designer. And you look at that automobile and you look at the crazy toggle switches inside, and you can tell that's got some aircraft background. But that is why the car just has this alluring, sexy, wonderful design, and the later ones don't. So with that, Brother Stephan, we will start off with your list of what we originally, folks, this is funny. Stephan and I were talking about 5 minutes before we aired, and we were supposed to do 3 cars each.
Of course.
Neither one could hold it to 3, so we both got 4. So Steph, pop off with yours.
All right, so listeners, Adams told me we're going to discuss 3 cars that we think most exemplify design is true to the core mission of its function. So me being a physician scientist, I'm going to find cars that are designed true to the core of its function. So, and looking back and thinking about this, even though I absolutely despise this car, it is true to its design and function, the Toyota Prius.
Oh, interesting pick. Despising, but makes the list.
I don't like it, but no, what was it designed for? It's designed to be a fuel-efficient hybrid vehicle, aerodynamic shape with a hybrid drivetrain, high-tech, kind of futuristic at the time. The designs got some weird stuff, but had the best fuel economy ratings, and I think it was an absolute excellent example of design true to its function. Even though even though I hate the things, I think they're ugly. What they intended to do with that vehicle, everything about it, they nailed it. And that's really, to me, the number one design is true to core mission of its function vehicle.
Goodness gracious, that was a pick that I did not see coming. And I mean, even though I just sort of made fun a little bit of the EVs prior to the Tesla, the Prius paved the way.
They introduced the world to a hybrid vehicle that functioned.
Yep. And that car has the drag coefficient of a gnat.
Yeah, well,
it's unreal.
So that was my number one.
Okay. Okay.
And
Cool.
then
Well,
number two, you probably could guess, Jeep Wrangler.
well, you want to go, but let's go back and forth. Let's go back and
Okay, let's
forth.
go back and forth. Yeah, all right. I should, of course,
Okay.
I should let you, Steve-O's not here to direct me and direct you, so I just start talking. So you are the moderator, Adams. I'm sorry.
No, no,
Take the mic.
no one directs you, Stefan. We know better, and Ellen has written us each numerous times saying that you could not be directed. So, listeners, forget what he said as his number two, and let it be a surprise to you. My number one, and I kept sort of going into this category of sports vehicles, and I have changed on the fly from what I had written down here with details. I'd originally written down, because I have a nearly duplicative car coming up later. What's written down here is the Ferrari Daytona, but I have changed it midstream to the Ferrari. I'm going to call it a Ferrari, the Dino 206 or 246. Basically of the same era. And the reason I changed it was partly because of packaging. I wanted a mid-engine car. And that is back in the day, Ferrari thought, okay, well, a Ferrari is a front engine V12. Enzo was quoted as saying that, or it's a V12 engined car, maybe not necessarily front, but the Dino came out as a V6 in 1969, and it lasted until about 1974. Came out with a 2-liter V6, et cetera, et cetera. It's called a Dino romantically because of his son, Alfredino Ferrari, who sadly died way prematurely. Heck of a motor designer, he in his own right. But so the Dino was sort of a little bit of a budget Ferrari when it came out. And so I'm picking it partly for that side, just almost as like a sentimental example. And I have owned one of those, but it's an incredibly packaged car. It is super tight. It looks like a sport racer of the era. It's got the huge, what they call sugar scoop headlights, similar to the E-Type, but even more exaggerated, a little slim, delicate mouth up front for the air intake. It's got a usable trunk in the rear. It's got a V6 turned sideways in the middle, so it's decently efficient. Not that you'd mind for gas mileage, but it basically sips fuel, about 190 horse in the later guys. And forgive me, I didn't even make a note on this thing, but it was also designed by Leonardo Fioravanti with Pininfarina at the time.
Say that again.
I'm sorry, I can't. I can say that one time per week. But it's I believe it's Fioravanti, and it is just the name alone, he sounds like an artist. But that car, folks, you pull it up and it has got every line exactly where it needs to be in my book.
Yeah, so you kind of think about the Miura came out, as the mid-engine first car, and then the Dino is kind of like the refined, lighter, less is more version of that.
Nice call. Yeah. I agree, man. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Very trim.
It's like a session IPA, it's instead of a double.
This is the all-day IPA version. That's right.
You can drive it all day long. It's comfortable. It's good gas mileage. It's got the power you need. It's not overpowered. It's not temperamental. But it's got all those design features that go with it, and it's drivable, more livable version.
Indeed. I drove one from LaGuardia Airport where the car landed. I bought it in Florence, Italy back in 1980. When was that? 3. Is that right? Yeah, 83. And I drove it from LaGuardia Airport in New York all the way to Montgomery, Alabama. It never hiccuped. I was perfectly comfortable.
Wow.
Yeah, fabulous car.
Unlike my drive in the Cobra from Washington, D.C. all the way to Knob Nostrum, Missouri, I arrived deaf in one ear, blind in the left eye, and a burnt foot.
But you still loved every mile, didn't you?
Oh, I did.
Yep. All right. Well, hit us with your number two as nice design that he evokes its core mission.
So, starting with Willys Jeep World War II design for very specific task, and then the Jeep Wrangler came out. Rugged, off-road capable, designed for adventure, exploration, solid axles front and rear, high ground clearance, sturdy construction, 4-wheel drive. And it has continued to evolve, and it's perfectly suited to its function. Now, most of the people who are driving them are just posers, but
Just label them, if you will. Why not? Why don't you?
Yeah. I mean, you know who you are out there. If I look under the undercarriage of your Wrangler and it is cleaner than the Miata in my garage that hasn't been driven in a year, then we got a problem, Houston. Okay. I mean,
the only off-roading they do is when they back over the flower bed.
Yes, exactly. But hey, it's a lifestyle vehicle, but they have remained true to the core of the design of that vehicle and for what it does and what it is highly capable. It is an incredible off-road vehicle. So that's my number 2. What's yours, Adams? I'm not going to skip to my 3. You go ahead. Tell me what's your number 2. You probably got something. You've got more interesting stuff. Mine is, I stayed truer to the task given to me.
How do you know this? I've chosen one and I'm already being critiqued.
Yes.
I'm 1/3 of the way through. I was about to give you props for actually following what we had formerly set up, is not jumping out there and giving us all 3. I was going to give you credit, but no, I've just snatched it. Okay. All right. My number 2 is the BMW Z8.
Oh, interesting.
Well, I feel like that car, of all the times that people love to drop the word retro out there and say, oh, it's a retro design or it's inspired by the history, et cetera, to me, without question, the best version of the retro themed inspiration is the BMW Z8. That car was built from 1999 to, I believe, 2003, 2004. It is just a fabulous car. It is intended to be evocative of the BMW 507, which was a car that was so complicated and so just, I don't know, over the top in its design. I mean, BMW really set some high design and engineering standards for that car. It about bankrupted the company. So the 507 is not like a car a lot of Americans even remember ever having seen. It's a multi-million-dollar car now, probably in the $5, $7, $8 million range. But Heinrich Fisker designed the BMW Z8, and man, oh man, he killed it. It looks both backwards and forwards at the same time, and it just is a wonderful design. Everything about it looks right. It's tucked in its right little place. Very minimal overhang, sort of like the E46 BMW M3, or just the whole E46 design language. Just minimal overhangs, not a lot of decoration. And true to the retro theme, you look inside the car and it's got a banjo steering wheel, which is meaning, so the strings of a banjo look like the rims on the steering wheel. The center of the interior is filled with gauges. They're not like driver focused, they're center focused. It's just, I don't know, it's a very tasteful look, and I'd sell about everything I own to have one in my garage. I think they're fantastic.
I thought you were going to say the 2002 Ford Thunderbird release. I mean,
that might be a retro.
It and the Z8 are retro, retro 2-door convertibles. I mean, you don't think the Ford Thunderbird in 2002 hit the mark?
I'm thinking it missed the entire target. It went over the backstop. It hit somebody in the stands. And Steph, I'm telling you, man, you were on, my friend, because that is a terrific example of a retro attempt that failed. What do you think? Is the Z8 to you? Is that a thumbs up or a thumbs down?
Oh, Z8's a thumb. I liked it when it came out, and I still like it.
Yep. Good one.
And actually, one of my partners was going to buy one, and he decided not to. And they didn't sell very well at all when they came out. You could get one.
You're correct. They were pricey as all heck, and BMW
very expensive.
A crazy thing, not crazy. I mean, it was like crazy, like a Fox crazy, but they guaranteed 50 years of parts availability for that car. So as rare as it is, people who might have been a little bit skittish, like, oh man, they're going to quit making this car and I'm never going to get parts for it. BMW guaranteed 50 years. Now that's bold as heck.
Well, that's easier than finding parts from my Bullet Mustang. We're still waiting on rims.
Oh,
on wheels. Yes.
Oh, we may need a Bullet update. I don't know if we got time in this episode.
I'm
curious about it.
But I don't know if Ford has 50 years worth of parts for the Bullet, but I'm still waiting on the wheels to come in.
Would a wheel be that difficult, Ford? Come on. Well, I guess they could They're going to make the wheels right after they finish the hard tops for the Bronco.
There you go. Yeah. All right. So you want me to go to my number 3 vehicle?
Yes, sir. Go for it.
Number 1 selling vehicle in the world ever. Well, I
Okay.
should say in America, the last 25, 30, the Ford F-150.
F-150 truck. Absolutely.
I mean, it just, full-size pickup truck designed for work utility. They got smart. They do the King's Ranch version, the Platinum version, now the electric version, but they have continued to refine the F-150, and it's the number 1 most registered vehicle in the United States of all time. It continues to be. They sell more. And the F-150 just, I have one, but for what it's designed for, it's the pinnacle of the pickup truck.
Man, oh man, I tell you, your design. There's no way I could have guessed at what any of us would be picking. I mean, if Steve was on this call, he would be chomping at the bit to have his choices. And Steve, we look forward to having you back on the call. Maybe you'll get to weigh in a little bit. We'll throw you a consolation bone. But I would not have picked for you, Stephan, the ones that you've chosen. But man, oh man, are they dead on the money of form and function, just perfectly intertwined.
I do listen to some podcasts where, people, they come up with this task and then they're so far deviated from it because, I hear the task like, I'm going to think about it. And so I want to stick true to it. And hey, those are the top 3 I came out. So what's your number 3, Adam?
I feel honored you're following this. I think with Steve out of the room, Stephan and I were so nervous about going off script. The teacher's away. Oh my Lord, how are we going to manage?
The teacher and principal's away. You're exactly right. I mean, I read your question word for word because normally with Steve, he sends me a what we're going to talk about, and I look up some of it.
Well, let's say it's also in doctor handwriting. It's in doctor handwriting. I can scarcely make it out.
And and he leads the discussion, but I didn't want to let you down as the moderator today, Adams. I didn't want you to be disappointed with my performance. So I actually worked at it today.
I'm touched, Steph. All right. Well, for number 3 here, I'm going to pick another one that, I'm now looking at my choices, and they seem to be following a slight trend here. Porsche 993 Coupe.
Oh yeah, that's the epitome of the 993. I have to agree because they've got a little bit big and bloated since then, but the 993 was the end of the whole perfecting the design, getting it better. Boom, the 993 was like they had it. Then up, now we're going to water cooled, but I do like the 993. I have to agree.
Can you imagine how difficult it was for Tony Hatter, who's a Britishman, by the way, Englishman, who is credited with the redesign, but of course he was picking up on the very Porsche designed and the PH look of the teardrop silhouetted 911 that was actually harkened back to the 356. I mean, Porsche is no stranger to looking barely over their shoulder to get inspiration on the next iteration of vehicles, especially when it comes to the 911 design language. And so Tony Hatter is sitting there having to pay homage to basically 40 plus years of this design language, and just blooming kills it. And the 993 is nipped and tucked to me in my eye. Of course, this is an opinion podcast today because it's all about design, but it's nipped and tucked in the exact right ways. It is muscular in the rear. It has one of the best 3/4 rear views you will ever see in automobiledom. I mean, it's got actual hips and it's exaggerated in that way. The front end is perfectly tastefully aerodynamic. Versus the just previous generation 911, what they call the G series, that ended in 89 with the 3.2 cars. That car looked a little bug-eyed. I mean, people would look at that and go, oh, look at that sort of frog-eyed, sort of mildly amphibious looking front end. The 993 has none of that, and forgive all the 964 devotees out there, which would have been the series just before the 993. I personally thought the 964 looked like it had a major overbite and needed an appointment with the orthodontist like tomorrow.
Well, and you picked a great one, Adams. The prices right now, I know I don't follow 993's pricing, but I know the prices are out the roof on the 993s.
Yep.
I mean, what would it cost you to get into, say, a 75,000 mile, nice condition 993? What's that?
You could, it's funny, you're picking one that's kind of been on my radar of late, but now I'm just chasing prices that have left me a little bit in the weeds of what I'd be comfortable on. But just a normal 993 C2, what they would call a base car, not the S. Now, the S is the one everybody really hits hard. The base car probably be mid $70,000 to maybe mid 80,000s. And then if you go to a C2S or a C4S, you are well into the 1.25 to 150, 160 range. And if you put some funky options on it in a crazy color and lower that mile, you are really sniffing up in the stratosphere.
Wow.
Yeah, they're out there for sure.
All right. So that was your third car. Right.
Yep, and here we have the bonus round.
The bonus round. Yeah, the Jeopardy bonus round. All right. So, so I was scientific on my first three, but the last one is an emotional car. Of course, you listeners,
Finally.
probably, you know what it's going to be the AC Cobra.
There you go. Yeah.
Very importantly, listeners, it is not a Shelby. It is correctly called an AC Cobra. A lot of people like to call them a Shelby Cobra. It is properly called an AC Cobra. You have to give
you are like steeped in all things Cobra and Shelby and AC. Tell us a little why that AC is in there. Like, because most people do say Shelby Cobra when they see it. Tell us about the AC lineage a little bit.
Yeah. So in 1962, Shelby was big time. Carroll Shelby. First of all, let's back. Carroll Shelby won Le Mans in 1959 with Aston Martin. He had a heart condition, did a lot of SCCA racing, so he wanted to move over to team manager, bring some cars over to America that could race, and he wanted to win the European championships. So he needed a car, and Ford had come out with the big engine. He initially went to Chrysler, didn't really work out. He went to Ford, Lee Iacocca, they got some engines. He found this AC car made in Britain. Brian Inglis, if I'm correct. No, not Brian Inglis. I'm having a mental. Yeah,
no, that's correct. Yeah.
And later on, and he said, "I'm going to drop a Ford engine in one of these," and because the car was doing well in the races, it had a 6-cylinder straight six. It wasn't that powerful, but this new Ford 260 was powerful. So this quickly turned out and become AC Cobra.
That straight six. They had two versions. They had a Bristol engine 6 and a BMW engine 6, and but it was still that incredibly good-looking body design that we're talking about.
The ultimate expression of the English two-door convertible.
Yeah.
And so Carroll Shelby dropped one in, and there's all kind of lore. He had one that in America, and he actually repainted it for multiple times, given to different drivers. There's all kind of stories. It's a fun history to read about.
It is.
Carroll Shelby, but he was an incredible snake oil salesman and a fantastic driver. But so he developed the AC Cobra.
A snake oil salesman would have a Cobra.
Yes, exactly. It's funny the stories he tells about how he came up with that name as well. It kind of changed, but it's one of those designs that's remained iconic over the years, and is probably the most replicated car made. They didn't make a whole lot of them. So a lot of people, when they first came out with Cobra, the AC Cobra, they sold pretty well, not as well. A lot of Hollywood stars had them, and rock and roll stars had them. And then a little bit, they were fabulous race cars, and they went down in value, kind of like the muscle cars. Nobody wanted the big engine, small cars.
Plus, they were almost all beat up. They were used as weapons. They were
weapons, and they were all a lot of them are just crashed because they're, you think about it, you've got 90-inch wheelbase car with this monster V8 in it,
conservatively rated at 1 zillion horsepower.
Exactly. So for me, this is just the ultimate expression. If you allow the English to perfect the two-door convertible, that is a sports car that can take the track. And then you bring in American ingenuity with the small block V8, and a guy named Carroll Shelby drops that engine. The Allards had been doing it the years before, but that wasn't a great design. It was a good race car, an Allard was, but it just didn't look nice. The Facel Vegas and all these others. This is probably what is the most iconic marriage of a body manufacturer and an engine manufacturer.
It's what we used to call hybrids before they were dual fuel hybrids. We really did. It was like, okay, well, here's a manufacturer in Italy or in England, and let's stuff a reliable and plentiful American motor, usually a V8, into it. And they call that a hybrid. It's like a Pantera, an Italia, an Intermechanica, etc.
So just for the segments of time, there's three Cobras that people talk about. There's the 289 Cobra, or the slab side. There's then the big 427 Cobra, which is what most people know. And then there's this unknown European AC, the AC Cobra Sports, which is the European version, the Cobb chassis Cobras, which looked a little bit different than the ones that came to America, the 427. So that is, and it's the most replicated car. And yep, I'm getting whatever you want to call it, a replica car, kit car, I don't care. But ERA is hand making my car, and the engine is being currently restarted on the engine, and it's I can't wait to get it.
I can't wait for you to get it either, because I've been hearing about it, and I know that that's been a bucket list item for you, and I think it's super exciting. And before I get into my fourth one, and then we're going to wrap this episode up, it's funny. As soon as you said Cobra, I thought, man, oh man, those cars, if you just took a silhouette shot, it actually looks like a BMW Z8.
Oh,
agreed or not? I mean,
well, I'm glad you like that, because it might be maybe the silhouette of Cars on Call logo looks a little bit like, hey, a Cobra or a BMW Z8. You're right.
There you go. Well, anyway, it's obvious what a fantastic design was, that they would bring it back that many years later with the long hood and the short deck. And mine, we do not have to dwell on very long, partly because of time and partly because Stephan really covered this genre very, very well. This is a purely durable, do what it's supposed to do kind of vehicle, the Toyota Land Cruiser. And I'm talking the 1991 to 97, what they call the Series 80. It's just a handsome design. It's got an inline six. It's a no frills kind of car. They were getting a little bit more driver aids, but it still has a solid front and rear axle, capable off-roader, stuff it full of gear. It's just as happy going on the interstate as it is in 2 feet of mud and going to a campsite. And I just think it just really hits on every point of its design dictum.
Well, it's like the Mazda Miata was the answer to the British sports car, two-door sports car. They got it right. Land Cruiser was the answer to the Land Rover, which had a lot of liability issues, body issues. And once again, they perfected it. I'm sure Gary would have to agree, or our former guest. Yeah, that's what they're great at, perfecting the design and engineering and reliability, and not always first to market, but they see what the market will want, and then they perfect it.
Because they are smart. They understand what reverse engineering is about. And part of the reverse engineering is, does it have market viability? And if so, let's do it better. And that's exactly right. And with that, Brother Steph, this was a fun episode. I had a good time. I hope the listeners did as well. We look forward to having Stephen back. Remember, you got to get him back, you're going to have to like, follow, and subscribe,
Hey, but you're going to be gone for a couple of weeks. I know you're going to Italy. You do anything cool car related over there? Maybe?
No,
you're right.
Yeah. We're going to fly over Italy, and I'm going to wave at it and come home. No, actually, and I wore my handy dandy little logo wear here.
Oh, look at you. Where's the gold chain to go with your Ferrari shirt and your Gucci logo?
Get out of here with the gold chain talk. That's the Lamborghini Club. You got the wrong people, you Polestar fan. I actually am going. We're going to Italy. Should be packing right now. We're leaving tomorrow, and I will be at the Ferrari factory on about our 3rd or 4th day of the trip. And I'm looking very forward to that. And it's actually also our 38th wedding anniversary. So
congratulations.
If your wife will go to the Ferrari factory with you.
I'm going to be in Ireland in 10 days, but I don't know if there's a DeLorean museum or not over there, but I may have to look for it.
The bombed out Northern Ireland factory. Well, they probably do have some homage to the DeLorean over there. You need to look that up.
I'll have to look that up. So, all right, listeners, like, listen, subscribe. Adam, is a wonderful time, and have a safe trip in Italy. And I can't wait to hear all about it.
Thank you.